Hello everyone, please hit the subscribe button on your screen and let me know where you're watching from in the comments. The wealthy don't see people like me. I've learned this truth in the 3 years I've spent polishing the marble floors of Westfield Academy, where tuition costs more than what I make in a year. They walk past me, their designer shoes clicking against the floors I just cleaned, their eyes sliding over me as if I were just another piece of furniture. Until that rainy Tuesday in October when Amara Hayes not only saw me, she really looked at me. I was mopping up a puddle by the east entrance when she rushed in, drenched from the downpour, her textbooks clutched against her chest. Most students would have hurried past, leaving wet footprints for me to clean. But she stopped, those startling amber eyes finding mine. "I'm so sorry," she said, genuinely distressed at the mess her entrance had created. "Let me help." Before I could protest, she'd set down her books and grabbed paper towels from a nearby dispenser. "You don't have to do that," I said, surprised to find my voice so steady when my heart was suddenly racing. "It's my job." "Doesn't mean I should make it harder," she smiled, and something inside me shifted like a lock finally finding its key. "I'm Amara." "James," I replied, offering my hand without thinking, something I never did with students. Their parents paid hundreds of thousands for them to attend this prestigious academy, not to shake hands with the man who emptied their trash. She took it without hesitation. Her hand was small in mine, but her grip was firm. That's how it started, with rain, wet floors, and a handshake that lasted a beat too long. I was 32, working 2 jobs to support my younger sister through community college, with dreams I'd carefully packed away years ago. Amara was 23, completing her master's in architecture, heiress to the Hayes fortune with the world laid at her feet. There were a million reasons why nothing should have happened between us. And yet, every day after that, she found reasons to be in whatever part of the sprawling campus I was cleaning. At first, our conversations were brief, weather, books, music. I tried to maintain distance, to remember my place in the world she inhabited. But Amara had a way of dissolving barriers I thought immovable. "Why janitorial work?" she asked one evening, sitting cross-legged on a lecture hall desk while I cleaned the whiteboards. The question wasn't asked with pity or condescension, just genuine curiosity. "It pays the bills," I answered automatically, the response I gave everyone. She tilted her head, those amber eyes seeing right through me. "That's not the whole story though, is it?" Something about her quiet confidence made me want to tell her truths I rarely shared. I was studying engineering when my parents died, had to drop out to take care of my sister. This job has flexible hours and decent benefits. "What would you do if you could go back?" I laughed, but it came out hollower than intended. "That ship sailed a long time ago." "Ships can turn around, James." The way she said my name made me believe, just for a moment, that perhaps they could. Later that week, I found her waiting by my cleaning cart, holding a book on modern engineering innovations. "Thought you might like this," she said, as if sharing literature with the janitor was the most natural thing in the world. I should have politely declined, should have maintained the invisible wall between us. Instead, I took the book, our fingers brushing in a way that sent electricity up my arm. "Thank you," I said, tucking it carefully into my bag. "But people might talk if they see us like this." "Let them," she replied with a shrug that carried the confidence of someone who'd never had to worry about what others thought. "I enjoy talking to you. You're the only person here who doesn't want something from me." The irony, of course, was that I was beginning to want something I had no right to desire her. Our conversations grew longer, deeper. I learned about her passion for sustainable architecture, her dreams of creating affordable housing that didn't sacrifice beauty. She learned about my love for jazz, my sister's determination to become a nurse, and the poems I wrote late at night when sleep eluded me. I didn't realize how deeply I was falling until the night of the winter faculty reception. I was working late, setting up the grand hall, when Amara appeared in the doorway wearing a simple black dress that made her look like something from a dream. "You clean up nicely," she said with a smile, nodding at my uniform which I'd pressed carefully that morning. "Not quite reception attire," I replied, gesturing to the catering staff in their formal wear. "Dance with me anyway." "Amara, there's no music, and I'm working." "Then we'll make our own," she whispered, and began to hum softly as she stepped toward me. Common sense told me to step back to remind her of all the reasons this couldn't happen. Instead, I found myself setting down my clipboard and taking her hand. We danced slowly across the empty hall, her humming a melody I didn't recognize but somehow knew by heart. For 5 minutes, I forgot about the differences between us. Forgot about the fact that her mother, Caroline Hayes, was one of the most powerful women in the country, that Amara's future was mapped in gold while mine was sketched in pencil. Then the door opened and reality crashed back in the form of President Whitfield, who stopped short at the sight of us. "Miss Hayes," he said, his tone carefully neutral, "I didn't realize you were here early." Amara stepped back from me smoothly but not with shame or embarrassment. "Just helping James prepare for tonight," she said, her voice steady. President Whitfield's eyes moved between us, calculating something I couldn't name. "How community-minded of you, your mother will be arriving shortly." After he left, Amara turned to me with a determination that made my heart race. "Come to the boathouse by the lake tomorrow at sunset, please." I knew I should refuse, knew this path led nowhere good, but watching her walk away, the scent of her perfume still lingering in the air around me, I also knew I would be there. What I didn't know was that Caroline Hayes had been watching us longer than I realized, and that by tomorrow evening she would be prepared to put a price tag on her daughter's happiness and test just how much my integrity was worth. The boathouse sat like a weathered sentinel at the edge of the academy grounds, overlooking a lake that shimmered gold and crimson in the setting sun. My footsteps felt leaden as I approached, torn between the voice of reason screaming at me to turn back and the magnetic pull of something I couldn't name, didn't dare name. Amara waited on the small dock, silhouetted against the dying light. When she turned, the smile that blossomed on her face made my chest ache. "You came," she said, relief coloring her voice. "I wasn't sure you would." "I shouldn't be here," I admitted, stopping a safe distance away. Whatever this is, it can only end badly." She closed the gap between us, fearless where I was cautious. "Why? Because you clean floors and I attend classes, that's circumstance, James, not character. Your world and mine don't intersect, they barely exist in the same universe." "Then let's create our own." She reached for my hand, her fingers sliding between mine with a certainty that weakened my resolve. "I've spent my whole life being Amara Hayes, heiress, daughter of, expectations piled so high I can barely breathe beneath them. With you, I'm just me. Do you know how rare that is?" The sun dipped lower, painting her face in golden light. In that moment, I couldn't remember a single reason why we shouldn't be together. "Tell me about your poetry," she said suddenly, leading me to sit on a worn wooden bench. I laughed nervously. "It's nothing special, just thoughts that keep me up at night." "Share one with me, please." How could I refuse when she looked at me like that? I closed my eyes, calling forth words I'd never spoken aloud. Between dustpan and dreams, I sweep away possibilities. Hours marked in footprints across clean floors. Invisible until your eyes found mine. Suddenly seen, suddenly real. When I opened my eyes, she was closer, her gaze intent on my face. "That's how it feels to be wealthy sometimes," she whispered. "Seen but never real, an accessory, not a person." "Hard to feel sorry for someone with a trust fund," I said, but without malice. "I'd trade it all for authenticity." Her hand came to rest on my cheek. "For this." The kiss, when it came, felt inevitable, like the period at the end of a sentence long in the writing. Her lips were soft against mine, hesitant at first, then with growing confidence. The world narrowed to just this dock, this moment, this woman whose touch rewrote everything I thought I knew about myself. When we finally pulled apart, reality began seeping back in around the edges of our bubble. "We need to be careful," I said, though every part of me rebelled against the words. "If your mother found out." "I'm not afraid of her," Amara interrupted. "I've spent 23 years being afraid. I'm done." But I was afraid, not for myself, but for what Caroline Hayes could do to this brave, beautiful woman who somehow thought I was worth the risk. We began meeting in secret, stolen moments in empty classrooms, texts that made my heart race, conversations that stretched until dawn. I learned how she drank her coffee black with a single spoonful of honey, her favorite architect Zaha Hadid, the childhood dream she'd never shared with anyone, to build tree houses for underprivileged children. I showed her my small apartment, embarrassed by its simplicity until she walked through it with genuine appreciation, running her fingers over my bookshelves, examining the sketches I'd taped to the walls. "It's so you," she said, curling up on my worn couch like she belonged there, and somehow, impossibly, she did. 3 weeks of borrowed happiness, 3 weeks before the other shoe dropped. I was finishing my shift, emptying trash cans in the administration building, when a voice like cut glass sliced through the quiet. "Mr. Wilson, a moment of your time, please." Caroline Hayes stood in the doorway of the conference room, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes, so like Amara's in color, so unlike in warmth, cataloged everything about me with clinical precision. "Of course, Mrs. Hayes," I said, straightening my posture automatically. "How can I help you?" "Come inside, this isn't a conversation for hallways." The conference room was all polished mahogany and leather chairs. Caroline gestured for me to sit, then remained standing, establishing dominance with practiced ease. "You're an intelligent man, Mr. Wilson," she began, packing slowly. "Your employment record shows excellent evaluations. You have, until recently, shown exemplary judgment." My stomach tightened. "Thank you." "Which makes your current behavior all the more disappointing." She stopped, pinning me with a stare. "My daughter is not an experiment in class tourism." The words landed like slaps. "With all due respect, Mrs. Hayes, Amara is an adult who makes her own choices. Choices influenced by a romanticized notion of what? The noble working man, the authentic experience she thinks you represent." Her laugh was a brittle thing. "She's going through a phase of rebellion. It will pass." "Maybe you don't know your daughter as well as you think you do." Something dangerous flashed in her eyes. "I know exactly who my daughter is and what she needs. What she doesn't need is to throw away opportunities for a man who cleans up after privileged children." She walked to her designer handbag, removed a checkbook, and wrote with deliberate strokes before tearing out a check and sliding it across the table. $50,000, she said, "to forget you ever met my daughter." I stared at the check, at the zeros lined up like soldiers. The amount represented freedom, my sister's education fully funded, maybe even a chance to finish my own degree, a way out of living paycheck to paycheck. All I had to do was walk away from Amara. I picked up the check, felt its weight in my hands, thought about Amara's smile, her laugh, the way she saw beauty in places others overlooked. Thought about how she looked at me like I was more than my job title. "No," I said, tearing the check in half and then quarters, "she's worth more than this." Caroline's composure slipped just for a moment. "Everyone has a price, Mr. Wilson. I simply haven't found yours yet." "Maybe some things shouldn't have a price." "How poetic!" Her smile was cold as she gathered her belongings. "But this isn't poetry, this is reality, and in reality men like you don't end up with women like my daughter, not because of some romantic notion of class division but because you exist in different worlds. You'll make her miserable. That should be her choice to make." "Oh, I quite agree, and she will make it once she sees you clearly. I'm simply accelerating the inevitable." She moved toward the door, then paused. "This conversation isn't over, Mr. Wilson. I protect what's mine." After she left, I sat in that expensive chair, surrounded by symbols of a world I didn't belong in, and tried to breathe through the fear her words had planted. Not fear for myself, but for what was coming. Because I had no doubt Caroline Hayes was just getting started. I debated telling Amara about her mother's attempt to buy me off. Part of me feared it would only create a deeper rift between them, while another part knew that keeping secrets would poison whatever we were building. In the end, truth won out. It had to. We met at a small cafe 20 miles from campus, far enough from watchful eyes. When I told her about the check, about her mother's cold assessment of our relationship, Amara's face hardened in a way I'd never seen before. 50,000, she repeated, voice flat. "That's what she thinks you're worth, that's what she thinks I'm worth." "She's trying to protect you," I said, surprising myself by defending Caroline. Amara laughed bitterly. "No, James, she's protecting her legacy, her image. If she were protecting me, she'd want me to be happy." She reached for my hand across the table. "And you make me happy." "For how long, though?" The question that had been haunting me finally escaped. Your mother's right about one thing: we come from different worlds. Sooner or later, that's going to matter. Her grip tightened. It matters now, it will always matter, but not in the way she thinks. What do you mean? Our differences are what make this real. You see me, not my family name, not my bank account, and I see you, not just the uniform or the job. She leaned closer. Do you know how rare that is, to be truly seen? In that moment, I understood something fundamental about Amara Hayes. Beneath her confidence and privilege existed a loneliness I recognized all too well: the isolation of never quite belonging. For her, it was gilded isolation, but isolation nonetheless. I tore up the check, I told her, needing her to know. Her smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. I never doubted you would. The next week passed in tense anticipation. I expected to be fired, to have my reputation smeared, to face some consequence for defying Caroline Hayes. Instead, something more insidious happened. Amara's phone mysteriously broke. Her email account was compromised. The grant she'd been expecting for her sustainable housing project was suddenly under review. Small, deniable disruptions that formed a pattern only we could see. She's isolating me, Amara said one evening, sitting on my apartment floor surrounded by sketches for her thesis project. Making it harder for us to communicate, threatening the things I care about. We could take a step back, I suggested reluctantly, just until your project is secure. She looked up sharply. Is that what you want? God, no, but I don't want to be the reason your dreams get derailed. You're not derailing them, you're becoming part of them. She crawled across the floor to where I sat, settling into my lap with determined grace. I'm not giving up on us, not for her, not for anyone. The kiss that followed felt like a promise, a defiance, a claim staked in uncertain territory. Her hands traced the contours of my face as if memorizing me by touch. I held her like she might disappear if I loosened my grip. I'm falling in love with you, she whispered against my mouth, and that terrifies me. Because of your mother. Because I've never felt like this before, like I'd risk everything just to see you smile. I knew then that I'd already crossed a line from which there was no return. I've been in love with you since you helped me mop up rain puddles, I admitted. Her answering smile was worth whatever storm was coming. The next morning, I arrived at work to find President Whitfield waiting by my supply closet. James, he said gravely, I need to speak with you about some concerning allegations. My heart sank as he detailed complaints about missed areas in my cleaning rotation, rudeness to faculty, even a suggestion that personal items had gone missing from offices I serviced. All lies, obviously fabricated but delivered with enough administrative concern to sound plausible. These don't sound like me, I said carefully. No, he agreed, watching me closely, they don't. Which makes me curious about why they're suddenly appearing on my desk. The implied question hung between us. Whitfield wasn't a bad man, just a practical one who understood which side his bread was buttered on. I can't speak to other people's motivations, I replied. Can't you? His eyes were kind but resigned. James, I value your work here, but I'm not in a position to go against certain, influential parties. Are you firing me? Not today. Consider this a warning, not from me but from powers beyond my control. He hesitated. I was young once too, you know. I understand the heart wants what it wants, but sometimes wisdom is knowing which battles can't be won. After he left, I leaned against the supply closet door, the implications clear. My job, my livelihood, my sister's education hung by a thread, all because I dared to love someone deemed untouchable. That evening, Amara called from a new number, her voice tight with anger and fear. She's sending me to London, she said without preamble. Claims it's for a special architecture symposium, but it's really to get me away from you. I'm supposed to leave tomorrow. For how long? 3 weeks, maybe longer. She's arranged meetings with firms there, trying to tempt me to stay permanently. Her voice broke. James, I think she's going to try to hurt you while I'm gone, really hurt you. I can handle Caroline Hayes, I said with more confidence than I felt. No, you don't understand. I found something in her study, files on you, your sister, everything. She's planning something bigger than just getting you fired. Cold dread pooled in my stomach. What kind of files? Financial records, your sister's scholarship information, even medical reports. Her voice dropped to a whisper. James, there were notes about your parents' accident. The world tilted sideways. My parents' deaths had been just that, an accident. A rainy night, a slick road, a tragedy that shattered my family and future in an instant. What could Caroline possibly want with that? Listen to me, Amara continued urgently. Meet me at the library archives tonight at midnight. There's something I need to show you, something I found while digging through my family's old records, something that changes everything. Amara, what? Just be there, and James, be careful, I think we're being watched. The line went dead, leaving me with questions that multiplied by the second and a growing certainty that whatever Caroline Hayes was planning went far beyond keeping her daughter away from the janitor. Something about my parents' accident, something in the family records. The past and present were about to collide, and I wasn't sure any of us would survive the impact. The campus was eerily silent as I made my way to the library at midnight. Stars punctured the velvet darkness overhead, indifferent to the human drama unfolding beneath them. Each shadow seemed to harbor a threat, Caroline's warning echoing in my mind with every step. The archives were housed in the library's basement, a labyrinth of historical records and institutional memories. The door was slightly ajar when I arrived, a sliver of light spilling into the corridor. I pushed it open cautiously. Amara sat hunched over a table scattered with documents, her face pale in the harsh fluorescent light. When she looked up, I saw fear etched into the lines of her face, fear and something else. Resolve. You came, she whispered, as if surprised despite herself. Of course I came. I moved to her side, scanning the papers spread before her. What is all this? Her hands trembled as she pulled a folder toward us. I've been looking into my mother's business dealings, trying to understand why she's so desperate to keep us apart. I thought it was just about status, about keeping the Hayes bloodline pure or some antiquated nonsense. She swallowed hard. It's so much worse than that. She opened the folder, revealing newspaper clippings yellowed with age. My heart stopped when I saw the headline, Tragic Accident Claims Lives of Local Couple. Beneath it, my parents' faces smiled up at me, frozen in time. Why do you have this? My voice sounded distant, even to my own ears. Because Hayes Industries own the trucking company whose driver fell asleep at the wheel and hit your parents' car. Her voice cracked. The driver had been working illegal overtime shifts. The company had been cutting corners on safety regulations for years. The room seemed to tilt as memories assaulted me, police at our door, my sister's screams, the coffins being lowered into the ground. Details I'd buried beneath years of determined survival. There was an investigation, I said numbly. They ruled it an accident. Because my mother buried the evidence? Amara pushed forward another document, an internal memo with the Hayes Industries letterhead. Her company was facing financial difficulties back then. A major lawsuit would have sunk them, so she made it go away. I read the memo with growing horror. Clinical language describing the unfortunate incident and strategies for minimizing corporate exposure. My parents' deaths reduced to a PR problem. The driver received a minimal sentence, Amara continued softly. The company paid a small fine. Your family should have received millions in compensation. Instead, you got standard insurance payout while my mother's empire continued to grow. A cold fury began building in my chest, displacing the shock. All this time, I dropped out of school, worked multiple jobs, watched my sister struggle, while the person responsible was living in luxury, Amara finished, tears streaming down her face, building the fortune I've benefited from my entire life. I stepped back, suddenly unable to look at her. In that moment, she was no longer just Amara, she was a Hayes, part of the family that had destroyed mine. James, please, she reached for me, her voice breaking. I didn't know, I swear I didn't know. But you know now, I said, my voice hollow, and so do I. This is why she's so desperate to keep us apart, Amara said urgently, not just because you're a janitor but because she's afraid you'll discover the truth, that you'll expose her. The pieces clicked into place with terrible clarity, Caroline's files on my family, her escalating threats, her determination to send Amara away. She's not just protecting her legacy, I realized. she's covering up a crime. We have the evidence now, Amara said, gathering the documents with shaking hands. We can go public with this, make her face consequences. And what happens to you? I asked, suddenly worried for her despite my anger. She's still your mother. Her eyes met mine, unwavering despite her tears. Sometimes doing the right thing means losing people you love. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here we stood, two people from worlds that should never have intersected, both facing the potential loss of everything we'd known, all because we dared to see each other as more than the roles assigned to us by birth and circumstance. I need time to process this, I said finally, my emotions too tangled to navigate in that moment. We don't have time, Amara checked her watch anxiously. My flight leaves in 10 hours. Once I'm in London, she'll make sure I can't communicate with you, and without me here to protect you, I'm afraid of what she might do. What are you suggesting? She took a deep breath. Run away with me tonight. I have access to an account my grandfather set up that she can't touch. We can start over somewhere new, somewhere she can't reach us. The offer hung in the air between us, tempting, terrifying. To leave everything behind, my job, my apartment, my sister, for a woman whose family had destroyed mine. I can't just abandon my sister, I said, the one certainty in a sea of confusion. Bring her with us, there's enough money for all of us to start fresh. She stepped closer, her eyes pleading. James, I know this is overwhelming, I know you're angry, you have every right to be, but what my mother did to your family, I can't change it. All I can do is try to make it right moving forward. By running away, how does that make anything right? It gives us time to build a case against her, to do this properly without her being able to destroy the evidence or hurt you. She touched my face gently. I'm not asking you to forgive my family, I'm asking you to believe that I'm not my mother, that I want to help make this right. A security guard's footsteps echoed in the corridor outside, forcing us to fall silent. When they passed, Amara spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. Meet me at the train station at 5 a.m. if you want to come. If not, her voice broke. If not, I'll understand. I'll still send you everything I've found so you can seek justice your own way. She gathered the documents into her bag and pressed a flash drive into my palm. All the evidence is copied here. Whatever you decide, you deserve to have this truth. Before I could respond, she kissed me with desperate intensity. A kiss that tasted of salt and sorrow and possibilities we might never explore. Then she was gone, slipping out a side exit and disappearing into the night. I stood alone in the archives, the flash drive heavy in my hand, my world shattered and reformed in the space of an hour. The truth about my parents' deaths had been buried for years beneath corporate memos and legal maneuvers. The woman responsible was the mother of the woman I loved. And now I faced an impossible choice: pursue justice for my family's past or flee toward an uncertain future with Amara. As I walked back to my apartment through the silent campus, I thought about cycles of hurt and healing, about how love can grow in the most damaged soil. I thought about my sister who had already lost so much. I thought about Amara, willing to sacrifice her privileged life to stand on the side of truth. By the time I reached my door, the first hints of dawn were touching the eastern sky. In 3 hours, I would either be boarding a train toward a new life or watching it leave without me. And I still didn't know which path I would choose. Dawn broke over the city as I stood at the train station, my entire life packed into a single duffel bag. The platform was nearly empty, just a few early commuters and me, watching the minutes tick toward 5 a.m. with a heart full of conflict. I'd spent the night in a daze, reading through every document on the flash drive Amara had given me. Evidence of corporate negligence that led to my parents' deaths. Proof of Caroline Hayes' systematic cover-up. Email trails showing how she'd manipulated investigators, paid off officials, and buried reports that would have held her company accountable. My phone vibrated with a text from my sister. Everything okay? You sounded weird last night. I hadn't told her what I'd discovered, couldn't find the words to reopen wounds that had barely healed. How do you tell someone that the foundation their life was built on was a lie, that the accident that orphaned us was no accident at all? The station clock showed 4:55 a.m., 5 minutes until the moment of truth. A taxi pulled up outside and Amara emerged, her usual confidence replaced with nervous energy. She scanned the platform until her eyes found mine, relief washing over her face. In that moment, seeing her stride toward me with purpose despite everything, I realized how deeply I'd fallen for this woman who refused to be defined by her family name. "You came," she said, stopping before me. "I haven't decided yet," I admitted. "Part of me wants to get on that train with you, another part wants justice," she finished. "I understand." We sat on a bench, the minutes ticking away while I fought the war within myself. Running away felt like admitting defeat, like allowing Caroline to escape accountability. Staying meant fighting a battle against one of the most powerful women in the country, a battle I might not survive. "What would your parents want?" Amara asked softly, cutting straight to the heart of my struggle. The question hit me like a physical blow. What would they want? My father had been a man who believed in standing up for what was right, even when it was difficult. My mother had taught us that how we responded to injustice defined our character. "They'd want the truth to come out," I said finally, "but they'd also want me to live, not just survive." The train whistle sounded in the distance, approaching the station. Decision time. I turned to Amara, seeing in her eyes the same question that tormented me. Was our connection strong enough to weather this storm? "If I stay," I said slowly, "it's not just to fight your mother, it's to build something that matters, something true with you if you're willing to stay too." She inhaled sharply. "You're asking me to stand against my own mother, to help bring her down. I'm asking you to stand for justice regardless of where the chips fall. Can you do that?" The train pulled into the station, doors sliding open with a pneumatic hiss. Freedom beckoned just steps away. Amora took my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "I can do better than that, I have a plan." Instead of boarding the train, we walked to a coffee shop across from the station. As the city awakened around us, Amara outlined a strategy so audacious it left me breathless. "My mother respects power," she explained, stirring her untouched coffee. "Right now, she sees you as powerless, a janitor she can intimidate or buy off. We need to change that equation." "Hell, I don't have power." "But I do, and so does the truth." She leaned forward. "The Hayes Foundation is hosting its annual charity gala tomorrow night. Every major business leader, politician, and journalist in the state will be there." Understanding dawned. "You want to expose her publicly?" "Not exactly. Public exposure is a last resort. It would destroy too many innocent people who depend on Hayes Industries for jobs. What I want is to force her to make things right, to acknowledge what happened to your family and provide proper restitution." "And if she refuses?" Amara's smile was cool and determined. In that moment, I saw the steel beneath her warmth, the Hayes in her that could be used for good rather than manipulation. "Then we go nuclear. I've already secured a meeting with the state attorney general, an old family friend who doesn't owe his position to my mother. He's agreed to hear us out this afternoon." My head spun with the implications. "This is why you pretended we were running away, to buy time to set all this up." She nodded. "I needed to be sure you were committed to seeing this through before I put everything in motion. And I needed my mother to think I was fleeing. It's keeping her distracted while we build our case." For the first time since discovering the truth, hope flickered in my chest. Not just hope for justice, but admiration for this extraordinary woman who had chosen the harder path alongside me. The meeting with the Attorney General was both grueling and validating. He reviewed our evidence with a prosecutor's careful eye, asking pointed questions about chains of custody and document authenticity. By the end, his expression had transformed from polite skepticism to grim determination. "This is compelling," he admitted, closing the file, "enough to open an investigation at minimum." "That's all we're asking for," Amara said, "a fair investigation without my mother's influence." He studied us both, his gaze lingering on our clasped hands. "You understand what you're doing, Miss Hayes. This could tear your family apart." "The truth already has," she replied quietly. "I'm just trying to heal a different family now." As we left his office, my phone exploded with notifications, missed calls from work, texts from my sister asking where I was, and an email from President Whitfield informing me that my continued employment was under review due to unexplained absence. "It's starting," I said grimly. "Caroline's figured out we didn't run." Amara's phone rang as if on cue, her mother's name flashing on the screen. she answered on speaker. Where are you? Caroline's voice was controlled fury. Your flight left hours ago. I'm exactly where I need to be, Amara replied calmly, with James. A beat of silence. You stupid, naive girl, do you have any idea what you're throwing away? For what? Some romantic fantasy with the help? I know exactly what I'm doing, and I know about the Wilson family. Mother, I know everything. Another silence, longer this time. When Caroline spoke again, her voice had dropped to a dangerous purr. Come home, Amara, we can discuss this privately like civilized people. No more private discussions, no more burying the truth. Meet us tomorrow before the gala. Either you make this right or we'll do it for you. Is he with you now? Listening to this? Caroline's voice hardened. Mr. Wilson, I hope you understand what you've done. You've taken my daughter's infatuation and twisted it into a weapon. For that alone, I will ensure you regret the day you ever looked at her. Before I could respond, Amara cut in. Threats won't work anymore, Mother. Tomorrow, 5 p.m. your office, come alone. She ended the call, her hand trembling slightly despite her confident words. She'll try something before tomorrow, I warned. She won't wait for our meeting. Amara nodded grimly. I know, that's why we're not going to be found until then. We spent the night in a hotel under false names, paid for in cash. I called my sister, telling her enough of the truth that she understood the gravity of the situation without burdening her with details that would only cause pain. She promised to stay with friends until everything was resolved. Lying beside Amara in the darkened hotel room, listening to her steady breathing as she slept, I found myself staring at the ceiling, wondering how my life had changed so dramatically in the span of weeks. From invisible janitor to man in love, from orphan of tragedy to seeker of justice. Are you afraid? Amara whispered, apparently not asleep after all. Terrified, I admitted. Your mother is powerful, connected, people like her don't lose. She rolled toward me, her face barely visible in the dim light filtering through the curtains. People like her win because people like us usually give up, but not this time. Her certainty should have been comforting. Instead, it underscored the danger we were courting. Caroline Hayes hadn't built her empire by showing mercy to those who challenged her. Morning arrived with news that sent ice through my veins. My sister's scholarship had been suddenly reviewed and revoked due to administrative error. Caroline was making good on her promise, targeting the people I loved most. It's just the beginning, I told Amara as we prepared to face the day. She'll come after everything, my job, my reputation, yours too. Let her try. Amara's jaw was set in determination. We have something she doesn't. What's that? Each other and the truth. We spent the day finalizing our strategy, gathering additional evidence, and preparing for every possible scenario when facing Caroline. By the time we approached the Hayes Industries headquarters that evening, we were armed with both information and resolve. The security guards recognized Amara immediately, nodding respectfully as we passed through the lobby toward the private elevators. Caroline's executive assistant met us with a tight smile, escorting us to the corner office with its panoramic views of the city. Caroline Hayes stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, silhouetted against the setting sun. She didn't turn as we entered. I raised you to be smarter than this, she said to Amara, still facing the window, to recognize manipulation when you see it. That's rich coming from you, Amara replied, considering you've manipulated everyone in this room. Caroline finally turned, her expression perfectly composed despite the tension crackling in the air. She wore an evening gown, clearly ready for the gala that would begin in hours. Mr. Wilson, she acknowledged with a slight nod. I suppose I should congratulate you. You've accomplished what many have tried and failed to do, turned my daughter against me. This isn't about me, I replied evenly. It's about what your company did to my parents and what you did to cover it up. Something flickered across her face, not guilt but calculation. Business decisions are rarely black and white, Mr. Wilson. You wouldn't understand the complexities involved. I understand that 2 people died because your company forced drivers to work dangerous hours. I understand that you buried evidence to protect your bottom line. And now you want what? Money? Her lip curled slightly. I already offered you $50,000, you refused. That was before I knew what you were really paying for, I said. My silence is worth more than that now, wouldn't you say? For the first time, uncertainty crossed Caroline's features. Name your price then, let's end this unpleasantness. Amara stepped forward. This isn't a negotiation, Mother, it's an ultimatum. You will establish a foundation in the Wilson family's name to support victims of corporate negligence. You will fund scholarships for James and his sister to complete their education, and you will step down as CEO of Hayes Industries. Caroline laughed, the sound brittle and cold. Absurd, you overplay your hand, darling. Do we? I pulled out my phone, showing the screen. The Attorney General is waiting for my call. One word from me and the investigation into Hayes Industries begins tonight, publicly, messily, right as your donors are arriving for the gala downstairs. You would destroy thousands of jobs, including your own, to satisfy your vendetta, Caroline challenged. No, Amara said softly, but we will expose the truth about one death that you caused, the rest is up to you. Caroline moved to her desk, pressing a button on her phone. Security, please escort. Before you finish that order, I interrupted, you should know that copies of all our evidence have been distributed to multiple sources, with instructions to release everything if anything happens to either of us. Her finger froze above the button. For the first time, I saw genuine fear in Caroline Hayes's eyes, not fear of justice or prison, but fear of losing the empire she'd built, the legacy she'd protected at all costs. You have 30 seconds to decide, Amara said, her voice steady despite the emotion I could see building behind her eyes. Make this right, Mother, for once in your life choose decency over power. Caroline looked between us, weighing options, calculating costs. In that moment, I understood that whatever she decided would determine not just our futures, but the kind of woman Amara would become, whether she would carry forward her mother's ruthless legacy or forge a new path built on integrity. The tension in the room built to an unbearable pitch as we waited for Caroline's response, a response that would either begin our healing or trigger a war none of us might survive. 30 seconds stretched into an eternity as Caroline Hayes considered her options. The woman who had built an empire through calculated decisions was now faced with perhaps the most consequential choice of her life. You would choose him over your own mother, she finally asked Amara, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm choosing what's right, Amara replied, something you taught me in words but never in actions. A flicker of something, pride perhaps, or recognition, crossed Caroline's face before her professional mask returned. Very well, she straightened, every inch the CEO once more. I will establish the Wilson Memorial Foundation with an initial endowment of $5 million, full scholarships for both James and his sister. Her eyes narrowed. But I will not step down as CEO, the board would never accept it and thousands of jobs would be destabilized. Amara and I exchanged glances. We had prepared for this counteroffer. Then you will recuse yourself from operational decisions regarding driver safety and oversight, I said, and implement every recommendation from an independent safety commission with me on the board. Caroline's laugh was sharp and surprised. You don't lack for ambition, Mr. Wilson. I lack for parents, I replied evenly, because your company decided profit margins were more important than human lives. The blow landed. For the briefest moment, Caroline Hayes looked like what she truly was, a woman who had made a terrible decision years ago and built walls of justification around it ever since. I will agree to your terms, she said finally, with one condition of my own. Which is, Amara asked warily. You don't go public with this, ever. The foundation, the scholarships, the safety changes, all of it happens quietly. The Hayes name remains untarnished. I felt anger rise in my chest. So you get to preserve your reputation while my parents remain just another traffic statistic. Your parents get justice, Mr. Wilson. Their legacy lives on through the lives saved by the foundation. Isn't that worth more than public shame that would help no one? Before I could respond, Amara placed her hand on my arm. We need a moment to discuss this, she told her mother. We stepped into the hallway, closing the door behind us. She's trying to buy her way out of accountability, I said, struggling to keep my voice low. Yes, Amara agreed, But she's also offering real change, real justice, even if it's not the public reckoning you wanted. I leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted by the weight of it all. What do you think I should do? I think, she said carefully, that you need to decide what matters more, punishing my mother or honoring your parents. The foundation could save lives, James. It could prevent other families from experiencing what yours did. Her words hit home. What would my parents want? More destruction, more pain, or something constructive built from the ashes of tragedy? When we returned to Caroline's office, my decision was made. We accept your condition, I told her, with amendments to the agreement to ensure your compliance. Relief flashed across Caroline's face before she composed herself. My lawyers will draw up the paperwork. No, Amara interjected. Our lawyers will draw up the paperwork. You've lost the right to control this narrative. For a long moment, mother and daughter stared at each other, two formidable women cut from the same cloth but choosing different paths. Finally, Caroline nodded. As you wish, she checked her watch. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a gala to host. One more thing, I said, stopping her before she could leave. I want to know why, not the corporate explanation, not the legal justification, why you chose to cover up my parents' deaths instead of making it right. Caroline paused at the door, her back to us. When she spoke, her voice held a vulnerability I hadn't heard before. I had just taken over the company from my father. The recession had hit us hard. The lawsuit would have bankrupted us. She turned slightly. I had a 10-year-old daughter to protect, a legacy to preserve. I told myself one family's tragedy shouldn't destroy thousands of livelihoods. So you sacrificed my family instead, I said softly. Yes, the admission seemed to cost her something vital, and I've made that same choice 1,000 times since in different ways. That's the burden of power, Mr. Wilson, the choices that keep you awake at night. She left without another word, the scent of her expensive perfume lingering in the air. Amara came to stand beside me, our reflections visible in the darkened window overlooking the city below. Are you okay? No, I admitted, but I think I will be. 6 months later, I stood in the auditorium of Westfield Academy, watching my sister walk across the stage to receive her nursing degree, fully funded by the Wilson Memorial Foundation. She had fought through grief, poverty, and uncertainty to reach this moment. Pride swelled in my chest as she accepted her diploma with tears shining in her eyes. My own engineering studies would resume in the fall. After years of putting my dreams on hold, I could finally pursue the future I'd once thought lost forever. The foundation had already implemented new safety protocols across the Hayes Industries Transportation Division and funded research into driver fatigue prevention. Lives would be saved because of what we'd done. My parents would have been proud of that legacy. Caroline Hayes and I maintained a cool but respectful relationship through board meetings and foundation work. She never apologized directly for what she'd done, but her actions spoke of atonement in their own way. Some wounds were too deep for simple healing, but we had found a path forward that honored the dead while serving the living. Amara appeared at my side as the graduation ceremony concluded, slipping her hand into mine. She did it, she whispered, nodding toward my sister who was being congratulated by her classmates. We all did, I replied, squeezing her hand. Our relationship had weathered the storm of family secrets and moral reckonings. If anything, the crucible had forged something stronger between us, a bond built on seeing each other's truest selves in the darkest moments. The social gap between janitor and heiress still existed in the eyes of society. There were still whispers when we attended events together, still raised eyebrows and questioning glances. But we had stopped caring about the worlds we were supposed to inhabit and instead created our own, a world where integrity mattered more than status, where love could bridge even the deepest divides. What are you thinking about? Amara asked as we walked away from the ceremony, the spring sunshine warm on our faces. I thought about the journey from that rainy day when she'd first really seen me to this moment of hard-won peace. About how love could begin with a simple act of kindness, helping clean a puddle on a wet floor, and grow into something powerful enough to bring truth to light and heal ancient wounds. I'm thinking about worth, I said finally. About how your mother tried to put a price tag on us, $50,000 to walk away from you. Amara smiled, best money she never spent. I was invisible before you, I admitted, just another janitor cleaning up after people who never saw me. And I was just another rich girl playing a role someone else wrote for me. She stopped walking, turning to face me. We saved each other, James. As I looked into her eyes, those amber eyes that had truly seen me from the beginning, I realized that's what love really was. Not grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but the quiet revolution of being truly known by another person and knowing them in return. Caroline Hayes had offered me $50,000 to forget her daughter. But there was no price high enough to make me forget the woman who had helped me find justice, who had risked everything to stand beside me, who had taught me that worth wasn't determined by job titles or bank accounts, but by the courage to do what was right even when it cost you everything. "Marry me," I said, the words escaping before I could overthink them. Amara's eyes widened in surprise before a slow smile spread across her face. "Is that a question or a demand?" "It's a promise," I replied, "that I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing truth over comfort, right over easy." "Then yes," she said simply, "I'll marry you." As we sealed the promise with a kiss, I thought about how life's most precious gifts often come disguised as its greatest challenges. My parents' tragedy had led to this moment of grace. Caroline's attempt to separate us had only drawn us closer together. And a janitor falling in love with a billionaire's daughter had led not to fairy tale endings, but to something far more valuable, a love built on seeing beyond surfaces to the truth beneath, a love strong enough to withstand the storms of family secrets and social divides, a love worth more than any price someone might try to place on it. Because some things in this world remain gloriously, defiantly priceless. Thank you so much for following James and Amara's journey to its conclusion. I hope their story touched your heart and reminded you that true love can transcend barriers and heal even the deepest wounds. If you enjoyed this tale of forbidden romance and redemption, please subscribe for more emotional stories that explore the complexities of human connection. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What was your favorite moment in James and Amara's journey? What stories would you like to read next? Your support and engagement mean the world to me.